when you're feared. There's no easy way to hear. And all the memories you love to bring, with all the things that you hate to scream. So tell me, hollow on the inside, there's no trying to hide from this monster inside me. So if you try to criticize me, like the world defines me, image of what I have become.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another special edition of the Browns Beat podcast. It's the bye week for the Cleveland Browns. Derek and I thought we were going to do something a little bit special in this episode. I'll let Derek kind of introduce what we're going to be doing today in just a little bit, but you guys know this is serious because I got the pomade in the hair. All right, it's all slicked back. I'm freshly shaven. This is a very serious episode. Let's lock in. Derek, first and foremost, how you feeling during the bye week? And give us a little bit of a breakdown into what we're going to be doing today.
Yeah, I'm feeling weird because normally it's despair right now from this team. But as you said, this is currently being recorded during the bye week. This will not be released immediately. I'm going to take my time with this and try to make this the best I can. But for those of you who will hear stats and things like that and you're like, that's not true, or if God forbid somebody got injured or something and you're like, you guys are idiots. This is being recorded during the bye week. It is November 16th that this is being recorded. So I wanted to put that out there. Now, with that being said, what we are doing today is we are doing an early look into the 2025 NFL Draft for the Cleveland Browns at the quarterback position. Now, I want to clarify. This is, if you are a fan of another team, right? This is not an overall NFL draft at quarterback breakdown. This is a breakdown for the Cleveland Browns, meaning scheme, fit, just overall. Like, this is for the Browns. I want to make that clear before I have a Raiders fan tell me, why is he number 4, number 3? He sucks. This is a fit for the Cleveland Browns. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you are not a Browns fan, please take this all with the understanding of the perspective that we are giving. I wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, Derek, honestly, personally, I doubt that matters. We'll get clipped out of context. It's fine. Yeah. You know, yeah. But no, I completely get you. And when we talk about this draft class, especially with the quarterbacks in particular, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions of this class. It's very, very polarizing. If you ask one section of fans, this is one of the greatest quarterback classes we've ever had. If you ask another, there's not a single good quarterback in this draft class. It's very, very polarizing. And there's arguments that there's guys that stand head and shoulders above somebody else. It really comes down to personal preference and just how you evaluate quarterback talent. And certainly in years past, Derek, that's actually shown on this channel. We have not been guys that see eye to eye a lot of times on quarterback prospects. So I'm really excited to see what your rankings are. We have deliberately made sure to not talk about our rankings. He has no idea what my rankings look like. I think I have an idea of what his rankings look like, but I'm still not even 100% sure. This is going to be really exciting. But Derek, before we get into it, what are your kind of overall thoughts on this quarterback class?
Yeah, a lot of people think this quarterback class is just ass. But my thing with this class is I think there are no solidified guys. Which what I mean by that is like you had your Trevor Lawrences, your Joe Burrows, those sort of guys in the past that you look at. And I could even argue Caleb Williams. Where people were looking at those guys as prospects and saying those are the next franchise cornerstones. This year, it's drastically different. This year's quarterback class, I think it is highly unfair to classify it as terrible. I think the correct way to classify it is unknown. This is a draft full of quarterbacks that you're betting on upside, you're betting on development, you're betting on what they can be, not what they are right now. For me, I think that this class has the chance to be very, very talented with a few different guys. But again, I do think the overall sports media landscape is treating this unfairly because you don't have a guy who's been lighting up college football for the last 3 years coming out of the draft. That doesn't mean it sucks. That just means your prospect evaluators, your scouting department of your team's of your fan base's team, whatever. I said that horribly wrong. They're going to have to do a hell of a job this year because this year it's not an easy one to evaluate. But guess what, Tristan? That's why we're here. We're here to do our own evaluating. Us two morons. We're here to talk about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, we are. And boy, oh boy, is this evaluation going to be interesting. Before we get into our top 5 lists, let's go through a few of our honorable mentions. I'll start first. Carson Beck. So this is a guy who, very popular name, especially coming into the season. There were some mock drafts that even had us taking him in the first round. Derek, I don't know about you. I was going to say, if we drafted Carson Beck, I think that might be enough for me to officially disassociate from the Browns. I'll always be a fan, but maybe I'll take a decade off or something like that, however long it takes. So I think we both are in the same boat with Carson Beck. Popular name coming into the season, was probably viewed as a potential guy. What we've just seen is just not been good enough. He's got to show a lot more in order to even sneak into a discussion of being picked in the first 2 rounds, at least in my opinion. So, Derek, what are kind of your quick thoughts on Carson Beck?
Yeah, you're going to hear with a couple of these guys in particular, me say the phrase, they should go back to school. Carson Beck is a victim of the downside of that. Normally, we don't see guys who look really good in 1 year, come back to school, and then completely ruin all of their draft buzz, all of their draft stock. Carson Beck is that. And I personally, I never have liked Carson Beck, even when he was playing good. I can admit he was playing good, but I've never been a fan. I'll put it to you like this. If the Cleveland Browns select Carson Beck, there is a 99.8% chance that this channel will be shut down for the time being and put on hold, because I don't have the time, energy, or effort to care about this team if that's the direction they go. And I feel bad for whatever franchise makes the decision to torture their fan base by selecting Carson Beck. He sucks. He played great last year. Okay. He's terrible. He's not good. He is awful. And listen, it is what it is. Maybe he can turn it around. You guys know I did not like J.J. McCarthy last year as a prospect. Thought he was way too overhyped. Let me tell you, if there is any sort of analysis from anybody saying, oh, Carson Beck, hey, look at him, you need to, I'm not going to say stop listening to them, but you need to highly reevaluate the amount of stock and the amount of value that you put in that person's opinion. Because, Tristan, I have watched Carson Beck these last few weeks, this entire season. The man needs to be put in jail for robbing the University of Georgia for the NIL money. I mean, he has absolutely been horrendous. Horrendous. And that's not even a good enough word.
Wow.
Sorry, I didn't know that little rant about Carson Beck was coming out.
Off to a hot start. We're not even done with the first honorable mention. Wow. I mean, I can't even say anything else to follow that up. So let me just move on to my next honorable mention. That would be one Mr. Curtis Rourke. Curtis Rourke having a great season with Indiana right now. I think he's shown some good stuff. I just personally am just not buying it. I think that a lot of it is coaching, play calling, and honestly, they've been the better team every single team that they've gone up against for the most part. So I think that right now, in particular, it's really hard for me to understand just how good Curtis Rourke is, and because of the fact that he's been playing college ball for so long, and he's in a team that is surrounded by a lot of talent, not playing much other great talent. You know, maybe my opinion changes after Ohio State. We'll see. I don't think it will. For me, I just see him as I think he's a career backup guy that's fighting for roster spots. Who knows? Maybe he's the next Tom Brady. Highly doubt it, but you never know. But I'm not a big believer in him right now. Even though I will admit I've seen some pretty good football. I've seen some good stuff out of him. I can't buy in. So, Derek, your thoughts on Curtis Rourke?
Yeah, the Maple Missile. A lot of Browns fans are trying to latch on to him. I get it. There's a lot of traits that you like in Curtis Rourke. And you're 100% correct. His entire evaluation is going to be determined how he plays against Ohio State. And for those of you watching this right now, my guess would be by the time you're watching this, Ohio State and Indiana are getting close to playing each other. But so far what I've seen is a guy who has played well, like you said, against lesser talent. Again, he's got traits, and I want to give him his credit. But there is one guy that he strikingly reminds me of, and it's a guy that I liked a couple years ago, and that's Carson Strong out of Nevada. A big-armed guy, a big quarterback, but the reality is he is, like you said, he is a career backup, and that is not a bad thing. I think it's important to recognize when you're evaluating these guys as prospects, not everybody you're evaluating as a starter. Some guys you're evaluating on, being a backup or being a fill-in guy. Those guys are important to an extent as well. That's what I see Curtis Rourke being, and I think we got to be very careful when trying to make somebody, what they're not. Now, I know that will come back to bite me in the butt when I talk about some other guys in this draft, and people are going to have opinions on them. But with Rourke, he went to Ohio University, some action there, and then he goes to Indiana, and he's playing very well. But if he comes out and balls out against Ohio State, okay, now we need to take a deep, hard look into Curtis Rourke. But as of now, I'm not sold. I think he has potential, but I think we need to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that assessment there. My personal last honorable mention, Derek, I know you're probably going to have one more than I will outside of this guy. For me, that's Garrett Nussmeier. I really like what I've seen so far. I think he's pretty good when it comes to understanding where the football's supposed to go. I think especially at the intermediate level, he's really, really good, really lethal at hitting those throws. For me, the biggest issues that I have with Garrett Nussmeier, at times it feels like he holds onto the ball just a little bit too long. There are times where pressure gets to him and he just doesn't handle it too well. Those are the two biggest things for me. I just think that with him, I think there's a lot there to like, but I think he's just a bit too raw, and I don't think that he's shown enough upside to the point where I feel comfortable saying, hey, this is somebody that absolutely should be in consideration for a first-round draft pick. I don't know if I see that. I really, really think that he's somebody that needs to go back to school, refine some of those flaws that he has in his game, get better handling pressure, get better, essentially like understanding defenses a little bit better. I think that he's somebody that will benefit from another year of playing. And honestly, if he goes back to school instantly next year, looking like a top 5 draft pick. We said the same thing for Cam Ward last year, that, hey, this is a guy that if he returns to college, he's looking to potentially be a first-round pick the following year. And look where we're at now with him. I think that what's best for him and his development is he goes back to school.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And listen, Nussmeier is an interesting situation because Garrett Nussmeier, went to LSU, sat on the bench, battled it out with Jaden Daniels, and I think people forget he gave Jaden Daniels a real tough run for his money last year at LSU. Obviously, Jaden Daniels gets the job. We see what happened, and Jaden Daniels is playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. But Nussmeier, he just simply hasn't gotten the reps. And, he is a good quarterback. He's a quarterback who you can see the outline, right? Like once he gets it all together, puts it all together, he could be really special. He's the son of a coach. So I always tend to like those guys because they've grown up in these sorts of structures, and he's coachable. And listen, he is a good quarterback. Nussmeier is a good quarterback. He's just not at the level yet that he could be. And I don't think going to the NFL right now is going to benefit him in any way, especially in the age of NIL. You have a big-time program like LSU. And, if you can convince him to come back, give him whatever money he would like, it's going to help him in the long run, and I think obviously it helps LSU in being a competitive football team next year. So I completely agree. I think he is really good, and if he were to come out of the draft this year, I would definitely be intrigued with him as a prospect with the Cleveland Browns. However, I can't do it in the first round. Second round, depending on who's there. Okay, now we can talk about it. But again, what you said, Cam Ward, right? Go back another year, and all of a sudden, boom, you're the guy. Next year's quarterback class, people want to hate on this year's. Next year's, it's shoddy. You got Nico, but everybody's like, Arch Manning. He's already said he's going to be going back his senior year at Texas, which certainly could change his mind. But, okay, what if Nussmeier comes back, plays great? Like you said, now he's a top quarterback. It just makes too much sense for me for Garrett Nussmeier to come back. But if he doesn't, again, he definitely, I think, would be a good fit. It's just going to take him a year or 2 years on the bench in the NFL before he's at that level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree. And especially when we consider the kind of modern era of NFL quarterbacks, like you really only get maybe 2 years to prove that you can start in this league, and then teams are ready to move on. It's very, very brutal right now when it comes to making it as a quarterback. The time frame that you have to prove yourself is getting shorter and shorter. Caleb Williams, I thought, has looked okay this year. But even him, he's starting to get some pressure now, and he's not even done with his rookie year. So that's where this stuff, you got to be very, very careful when you come out of the draft. Garrett Nussmeier, 100%. Go back to school, get another year of starting experience under your belt, and let's see what you can do in next year's draft, where you're at then. I'd imagine he'll be a lot better of a prospect. I really think he next season probably will be a top 3 quarterback, might even be number 1. He's got that potential.
Yeah, 100%. As far as honorable mentions go, there is a guy that I would like to talk about as an honorable mention, but I'm pretty sure he's on your list.
Yep.
So let's wait to talk about him. I'll have you start off with your number 5.
Awesome. So, my number 5 is going to be Mr. Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Part of the reason why I have Quinn Ewers at number 5, I don't know what to make of him. And that's really concerning for me to say that when he's in his senior season. And here's what I'll say, right? There's good, there's meh, and there's bad. And it's really hard for me to get a projection on what he will be at the next level. That's the biggest thing with me with Ewers. So personally, like as far as strength goes, he's got some decent mobility. It's not terrible. It's not great. It's kind of just middle of the line. He does a really good job when he has to kind of buy some time with his feet, keeping his eyes downfield and throwing on the run. He can do that as well as almost anybody in this class. In terms of like decision making, kind of hit or miss. Depends on the game. He's really a guy that you got to get in rhythm in order to get the true best out of him. But his arm talent's there. He's got the ability to make every single throw that you want him to make. Those are kind of like the biggest takeaways as far as like strength and kind of meh goes. As far as weaknesses, there are times where he can be late to his reads. He can stick to his reads for a bit too long at times. He's not always very, very accurate. A bit of inconsistency with his accuracy. In addition, when he's under pressure, he can also be fairly inconsistent. As far as statistics go, as far as by the time we're recording this video, he's got a 69% completion percentage. Nice. 2,700 passing yards, 19 TDs, 6 INTs, 75 rush yards, rushing touchdown, QBR of 147.4. Let's see here. As far as passing efficiency rating, we're at a 147.4. Yards per attempt, 10.9. Yards per completion, 15.7. Total QBR, 71.4. Let's see here. Yeah, that's everything I had as far as stats for him. Yeah, overall, solid prospect. I want to see more. He's somebody that I think could fly up my draft board as the college football playoff starts to come around. But he's also somebody that I could see falling off of it entirely. Like that's kind of where I'm at with Quinn Ewers, and that's why it's really hard for me to put like a definitive like stamp on where he should be. In terms of for the Browns, he could be a fit, but I got to see more. I have to see more before I can kind of make that decision. In terms of like a projection at this moment in time, I've got like a 3rd round grade on him. Again, he's somebody that could propel himself into the top 5 conversation. It really, really just depends on what he does down the stretch. And I did give kind of like a pro comp. I felt like it was kind of a fitting comp. I put Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a very, very well-rounded quarterback in the NFL. Can do almost anything you ask him of. And when he's clicking, he's up there with one of the greatest. So I feel like that's one of those like solid comps, like, Jared Goff type quarterback. Like I can see that for him. But again, I got to see a little bit more from him before I can say anything with certainty on him.
Yeah. I pretty much agree with everything you just said there. Now I will say I gotta give context to this. I greatly struggled where to rank him, and these are loose rankings, so I didn't like think too much into it. But ultimately, between my 4th and 3rd, I decided to put Quinn Ewers 3 on my list. for a couple reasons. Let's give some details. He's 6'2", 210. He's going to be 22 at the start of the season next year, NFL season. Went to Ohio State, ultimately transferred to Texas, where he always wanted to be. And there's a lot to Quinn Ewers, and you're 100% spot on. He is a tough one to try to read. Some of his strengths, he can make every throw on the field. He's fantastic in play action. He keeps his eyes downfield. Good touch and timing. I'll get to that, what I mean by that, more so in the negatives. And like you said, he's got solid mobility. It's not great. It's not bad. I think it's decent to solid at the NFL level. His weaknesses, and this is where the hardest part of evaluating Quinn Ewers comes into effect. I should mention, at the time of recording this, he's coming off of his best game against Florida, and he looked great. Some of these problems did not show themselves, but we've seen some of these issues all year. He's got inconsistent mechanics, which is a huge problem for him, that causes inconsistency with his accuracy. His footwork needs improvement. He does have injury issues. We've seen Quinn Ewers get banged up a lot in his time in college. It's not been anything that's like major, out for a year, but this becomes an issue because of his size for the next level. I personally think he will be okay as far as size goes. This is not a Bryce Young frame that he's working with, but it could potentially become an issue depending on where he goes. He uses his arm talent more than fundamentals, which partially why I put him number 3 on my list is because all the issues that I see that he has are fixable. The stuff that you can't really fix, arm strength. He's got arm strength. As far as how he moves in the pocket and just kind of understanding the game, he's got that at a good enough level. But the footwork, the mechanics, those are things you can fix. He holds on to the ball a little bit too long, in my opinion. Needs to progress through his reads faster. Those are all fixable issues. And the reason why I put him 3 is because when we're talking about fit for the Cleveland Browns, I'm thinking of Kevin Stefanski's offense and your comparison, Jared Goff, right? What does Jared Goff do so well? A lot of the play action, a lot of not forcing him to be Superman and just kind of letting him be him. I think Quinn Ewers, I agree with you, is very similar to that. I can definitely see him being a really good quarterback at the next level just because of his arm talent. He has great arm talent. And this is why he was a top prospect coming out of high school. I do think if Kevin Stefanski got his hands on him, I think Quinn Ewers would be a good fit for the Browns. That's my personal opinion. But I completely agree. His draft stock is solely remaining on the rest of the season and the college football playoff. Because if he can ball out and be consistent, which has been the number one issue, and stay healthy, but if he can be consistent, he can really jump up draft boards. So I decided to put him at 3. 90% of the reasoning is fit. I think he would be a good fit.
Yeah, completely understandable. Completely hear you there. Derek, I gave my number 5, which was Quinn Ewers, which you marked him as number 3. Sir, give me your number 5.
Oh boy, this is going to be an interesting discussion because this player is one of the most polarizing figures in college football. He is somebody that it's hard to get a read on. It is very hard to get a read on. And I want to clarify before I say who it is. I didn't put him at 5 because of talent. I put him at 5 because of fit. If you draft this player, you have to, in my opinion, really structure your offense around him. My number 5 is Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe is 6'2", 225 pounds. He's going to be 22 to start the season next year. Went to Alabama. So far on the season, 2,046 passing yards, 67.7 completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 85.7 QBR. That is 5th in all of college football. There's a lot with Milroe. He's got elite, and I don't use that word lightly. I mean it when I mean it. Elite mobility. He has a very strong arm. So he's got the mobility and the arm strength. He manipulates safeties with his eyes, pump fakes very well, good at those sorts of things. He's tough. Jalen Milroe can take a hit and get back up, and he's a leader. A lot of his teammates love him. They love him there at Alabama, but there are some weaknesses. Inconsistent mechanics, kind of similar to what we talked about with Quinn Ewers. Accuracy and ball placement. Another thing that comes down to the mechanics. His accuracy and ball placement, very inconsistent. He needs to improve his field vision, progress through reads. And the biggest one for me, questionable decision-making, holds on to the ball too long. There are times where Jalen Milroe looks just beautiful, right? Looks like a great quarterback. And then there's times where he just looks clueless. I think Jalen Milroe, for me, a lot of people would say Lamar Jackson. I think Jalen Milroe is a mix between a Lamar Jackson and a Jalen Hurts, in the sense of he's got more of a Jalen frame, more of Lamar's running ability than Jalen's. But as far as the arm goes, strong arm. It's just the in-between. Accuracy, mechanics, those sorts of things. And the reason, Tristan, why I put him at 5 is strictly because I see Jalen Milroe as a project. And I don't mean that as a negative, because I do think he could be a really, really, really good quarterback at the NFL level. But it's going to take time. He's going to have to sit and develop. For me personally, I would love to see Jalen Milroe on the Seattle Seahawks. I think that would be an outstanding fit for him. But this discussion we're having when we're talking about who is the best fit for the Cleveland Browns, boy, if we take Jalen Milroe, we're talking about, 2 to 3 years in the future, this is your guy. And I don't see him being the best schematic fit for the Browns. I don't know how he would work with a Kevin Stefanski. But he's very talented. He's very talented. If we're talking just raw talent, where's he at on this list? I think he's top 3 for sure, just based on raw ability. But, when we're talking the situation that we are in, again, as the Cleveland Browns, I have him at 5 for me. But I can't wait to watch his career because I think he is a really, really good player.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to give you my ranking on him now, or do you want me to wait?
Yeah. Let's just do that because we'll keep it all together then.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Jalen Milroe is my number 1 quarterback. Jalen Milroe.
I had a feeling.
Jalen Milroe is my number 1 quarterback, and here is why. I completely get what you're saying, in particular when it comes to your concerns, in particular with for me, my biggest concern with him was deep ball accuracy. I wanted to see him improve that, have the time to be able to develop that. But when we're looking at a Kevin Stefanski offense, right, at its peak, at its best, it's guys who play on time, guys who progress through their reads quickly. And in many of the games that I've watched with Jalen Milroe, when he's been at his best, it's been when he's been going through his reads the quickest, when he's been decisive, when he's been able to look off safeties, like you said, pump fake, get guys moving. He has a very, very unique ability that, even though you could argue his greatest trait, which I think it is his greatest trait, is his running and his speed, him as a quarterback, he is best when he's playing a little bit quicker. Like when he's making quick decisions, getting the ball out of his hand. And I think what we've seen here in Cleveland is Kevin Stefanski's offenses have looked the best with guys like that. Guys that are going to get the ball out of their hand quickly, guys that are, going to try and make it so that way they're not extending plays excessively. When we think about like Lamar Jackson, I shouldn't say Lamar Jackson, I'm sorry. When we look at Deshaun Watson, part of the reason why he struggled so much was because he would sit in the pocket forever. He would take forever to make a decision, and then he would start running backwards and off to the side, and he'd escape the pocket trying to find something that ultimately just wasn't there. When it comes to the Kevin Stefanski offense, Jalen Milroe doesn't do that. He's a bit different. When he's escaping the pocket, more times than not, he's stepping up in the pocket, finding his gap, and turning upfield. That's where he's very lethal. And I think that type of quarterback, when it comes to his running ability, that would succeed in that Kevin Stefanski offense. Because, again, he's going to rely on his timing. He's going to rely on getting that ball out quickly. But when a play isn't there, he's still going to do the right thing. Step up in the pocket, find his gap, and then run. And he's got the mobility to kill teams with his running ability. I think that in terms of talent level, I think he is, as far as ceiling of his talent, absolutely top 3 in this draft. I think there's a serious argument for number 1. I really think that with him. Let me go through kind of some of his other strengths. Quick with his reads. I find a lot of times when he's in the pocket, he'll look left. It's not there. Quick look down the middle, and maybe it is there, maybe it's not. But he's shifting through his reads quickly. You can see that helmet. You can see the helmet turning. You can see how quickly he's looking for different options. And Derek, you mentioned it. His teammates really like him. He's a leader. One of the things that I've kind of grown to love about Jalen Milroe, I was watching, which game was that? I can't remember, but there was a report from one of the sideline reporters that Jalen Milroe has started going into the facility at like 4:30 in the morning, or even earlier at times, because the Alabama team was just not good enough. And his answer was, we got to work harder. We got to work harder. We have to do more. And I really like that. That's a guy who's a leader, and I really like that ability with him. The other thing, more so than any other quarterback in this draft, in my opinion, he's elusive in the pocket. These other guys, it's more so about escaping the pocket and then making a guy miss. Him in the pocket, he will bait a defensive tackle. He'll be like, oh, I'm standing here. Whoop. Nope, I'm 2 yards to the left now. And he's still in the pocket. He's making guys miss. He's keeping his eyes downfield. I love that about his game. Let's see here. I really like his footwork. His footwork, I find, especially on his RPOs, you'll see him kind of quickly go off of that first read, kind of pivot, and then boom, ball's out. It's beautiful. Beautiful footwork when you pay attention to it. Let's see here. Understanding of ball placement. So there was the one interception that he had against Georgia was absolutely not his fault. The broadcast said, oh, he threw it behind his receiver. Yeah, he did, but he did it intentionally. If he led his receiver with that football, he was beating a Georgia middle linebacker ready to take his head off. The guy was supposed to fall down with the ball on his back hip. That was what was supposed to happen. But instead, the guy tried to pick it up and keep running forward, ended up bobbling it, interception, right? And there's a lot of instances of that where it looks like it's an inaccurate ball, but actually he's putting the ball away from danger for his receiver to get to it. And that's something that Tom Brady talks about all the time, that, he would constantly have to think about when the bigger hits were more legal in the NFL, about protecting his guys, right? And so when he was playing against the Baltimore Ravens, he couldn't go over the middle of the field because Ray Lewis was going to kill somebody. Not literally, although he has done that. Anyways, there's a lot of other positives that I really like, but a lot of them in my opinion, would take a lot of kind of going through the film as well, because a lot of intricate stuff, and I really like that type of stuff. It's some of the similar stuff I really liked about Drake May, which I believe is looking to be pretty good right now. In terms of weaknesses, can be inconsistent with his accuracy. That certainly, especially when we're talking down the field, there are times where ball needs to be a couple feet further outside, and instead it's on the inside. There's some issues with that. Fairly strong arm, but not the strongest of arms in the draft. Let's see. And he does rely very much on his timing. When his timing is off, he does tend to make some poor choices. Let's see. There are certain instances that I noticed where he would struggle to sense pressure, especially coming off of the edge. There were times that I saw that, and that was kind of a red flag for me with him. And then he did have some times where he forced the ball downfield when it really didn't need to be there. Those are some things that, in my opinion, those issues are things that are easily fixable at the next level. It's stuff that essentially just, hey, dude, I understand you want to win this football game, but don't be over aggressive. That's half of those weaknesses, those issues gone off the table. I think he's the most pro-ready quarterback in this draft class. I think it's pretty easy to say that, at least in my opinion.
Ooh, that's a hot take.
I hear you, but trust me, when we talk about some of these other guys, I will give you my reasonings, and I promise you that I have grounded fact in it. Pretty much he can do almost anything that you ask him to. And again, I think he fits in this Kevin Stefanski system. It's not a traditional fit in this Kevin Stefanski system. It's a little bit different than how we usually would see a typical Kevin Stefanski quarterback. But how he plays as a quarterback, in particular with this draft class, I think it will work in the Kevin Stefanski system.
Yeah, I would be ecstatic. If we got Milroe, I would be ecstatic. I've been a fan of his for years now. I think he has elite traits. The reason why, and I was solidified putting him at 5, is the reason why was because strictly I have significant questions about the fit here. Because similar to like a Lamar Jackson type, I think the best usage to get out of a Jalen Milroe as your quarterback is to structure the offense around him. I don't think the offense as we currently stand would be ready to structure around him. And I'm not saying that's a tough thing to do, right? But yeah, I do think Jalen Milroe will be a good quarterback in the NFL, dependent on where he goes. That is a huge thing. It's a huge thing. So I'm trying to think how. So my number 4, I don't even think is on your list, and I'm interested in getting kind of your opinion and what all research you've done into this guy. Do you want me to just go with my number 4 first, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, you go with your number 4, because I know my number 4. It's gonna be a longer conversation, but go ahead.
Oh boy, okay. So my number 4, and I said it was tough between Quinn Ewers and this guy, because the biggest thing for me is fit, pro readiness, and just overall traits. Because for me, I look more so as how soon can you start, how soon can you be ready. For me, my number 4 at 6'2", 225 pounds is Jaxson Dart out of Ole Miss. He's going to be 22 years old to start the season next year. He went to USC, which Lincoln Riley then showed up, and so did Caleb Williams, and sorry, you're not getting that job. So he went to Ole Miss. He's currently at 3,409 yards, 70.8 completion percentage, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 86 QBR, which is 4th in all of college football. Strengths, he's got good velocity on intermediate and underneath throws, can make throws at different angles, has reliable accuracy, solid arm strength. I say great mobility, which I'll touch on that more in a second. Great in the RPO and play action game, and he is a legitimate threat with his legs. Weakness, his arm strength is solid to good. It's not great, it's not elite, it's not special, it's good. Inconsistent footwork, that's one thing I noticed with Jaxson Dart. He holds on to the ball a little bit too long for my liking, which is a factor at the NFL level. You got to get the ball out quick. And my biggest issue that I have with him is he second guesses some of his throws. And he tends to kind of pat the ball and do some of the things we saw Baker doing for the Browns, of just kind of second guessing. Now, all in all with Jaxson Dart, I think he, as far as you don't take a quarterback in round 1, you're looking at the rounds 2, 3, 4, taking a guy that you like best. I think Jaxson Dart is a tremendous fit. I think he's a tremendous fit for a lot of the reasons of what we talked about with Jalen Milroe, to be honest with you. I love his mobility. I think Jaxson Dart is a legitimate mobile threat at the NFL level. When you watch him at Ole Miss, he's very smart with how he uses his legs. That's the best way I can describe Jaxson Dart. And, as far as him as a quarterback goes, the dude, I like what he does throwing over the middle of the field. There's a lot of quarterbacks at the college level who are scared to kind of attack over the middle. Jaxson Dart is not. And it comes down to what I said, like the RPO play action game, which the offense that they run at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, it's very heavy RPO. And I don't like a lot of that stuff personally. But when you watch the tape and you watch more into him, the play action and the kind of offensive structure similar to what we run, I think he would be a great fit. I really do. And he's a leader. I like the kid. I watched some of his interviews. I watched, just him talking. I love the kid. I think he has legitimate potential to be a really good quarterback at the next level. And as far as fit goes, I think he would be a really good fit with the Browns. I want to see where does he go throughout the rest of this season, because he had his games, right? I think, was it against Georgia? Somebody this season, he put up like 5 touchdowns and had an insane game. I want to see, as Ole Miss gets to the playoffs, where, assuming they do end up making the playoffs, how does he match up against, these top 12 schools? Which so far he's done a great job, but I want to see, because my questions that I have with him, my biggest concern, the holding on to the ball, those sorts of things, we're going to get a better answer. As far as everything else, like I said, throws at different angles. He's got good touch on the ball. His accuracy is solid. Those sorts of things I like a lot. And I really do think Jaxson Dart is a name we need to be paying more attention to as far as a second level, as far as these guys go. So I'll throw it back over to you. Is Jaxson Dart on your list? That's the question that I wanted to know.
No, he's not. To be honest, he's a guy that I haven't done nearly enough work on. Mississippi State. I say Ole Miss, not Mississippi State. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Ole Miss is just like one of those teams. Like, I think they're interesting to watch. In terms of him, I haven't watched a ton and focused in on him enough. I can't really say too much in regards to him, just because I've really only seen glimpses. It's been a lot of, honestly, just watching when they've lost.
Yeah.
That's really all I've really seen, just because, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things, like, I just haven't really had the time to properly sit down and evaluate him. And there have been a couple other quarterbacks that have had a little bit more noise around them, especially from Browns fans, that I wanted to take a closer look at first. So he probably will be the next guy that I look into. And when it's time to officially like rank these guys at the end of the season, he will probably be somebody that I at least have as an honorable mention. I just don't have enough right now for him.
For the record, because I know where you're not, I know where we're going next, and I know how long that discussion is going to be.
Yeah.
I wanted to clarify the whole reason why I put it. It was, dude, I was sitting here at my computer looking at numbers from each of them. I was looking at tape from each of them, and I'm like, man, and for me, this whole top 5 is very close.
Yeah.
For me, like it's very, very close. With him and Quinn, right there. I mean, they are right there. I put Quinn at 3 strictly because of the arm talent. Quinn Ewers has undeniable NFL arm talent. That is the sole reason why I put him at 3. But both of those guys, I think, again, in that next tier, would be really good fits. But I definitely want to say, not just for you, but for Browns fans watching this, just watch some Jaxson Dart. Just get familiar with him, because I do think he is a good fit. And I actually have I don't even know if I want to say this because there's more of a negative than a positive with this name, but how he plays reminds me of good version of Carson Wentz. I think there's a lot of kind of similarities there. Maybe more mobile, not as good as far as an arm goes. But I like him a lot. He's one of the guys on this list that I'm like, man, I think he could do something. I really do. So with that being said, let's just get into it. Go ahead.
All right. Let's just rip off the Band-Aid here. Why don't we? My number 4 quarterback is Cam Ward. Let me start with the positives with Cam Ward. In terms of mobility, got everything you want. He's very, very mobile, very athletic, can extend plays, really, really good in that regards. And that's really where he's best, is when he's extending the play. When he's extending the play, buying time with his feet, looking downfield, throwing on the run, which that's where you actually see the best of his arm too, is when he is on the run. He has that ability to make those special, special plays. And he absolutely can be a very, very accurate thrower too, in particular on the run. And in a lot of ways, he reminds me a lot about Caleb Williams, which, if you remember last year,
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was going to make that point.
Yeah, and if you remember last year, I had Caleb Williams as my 3rd-ranked quarterback behind Jaden Daniels and Drake May. I will still stand by that. Now, Jaden Daniels is looking to be the best quarterback in that class, but currently there's still a lot more time, and I think Drake May has shown a lot of promise to be my number 1 quarterback. Here's why I got to be honest. I think I'll just say it. I think Cam Ward, in particular for the Browns, is undraftable. Here's why.
Wow.
Here is why. For starters, he holds on to the ball way too long. I understand you said that about Jalen Milroe. This guy's completely different. I'm not even kidding you, Derek. Multiple times while watching his film, I was counting Mississippis. I got up to 6 Mississippi multiple times before this guy got the football out. He holds on to the ball way too long. Oftentimes stares down his first read. So much he does it. And he gets away with a lot of this stuff because he has some of the most elite receiving options in college football. Restrepo is an amazing player. And I think he's potentially, sorry, go ahead.
Great day to steal.
Yeah.
For everybody out there.
Incredible player. If he even makes it to day 2, by the way. Something that really annoys me with Cam Ward, he doesn't step up in the pocket. He very, very rarely does it. He's a guy that likes to roll out of the pocket. And in particular, when we're talking about a Kevin Stefanski system, in particular this offensive line, the way that this team has, the best this team has looked, in particular with protection, has been when we've had a quarterback that stays in the pocket, steps up in the pocket to avoid pressure. You'll see Cam Ward run backwards sometimes like 15 yards. Like, this guy's insane. Like, I understand he's getting away with this at the college level. It's not going to fly in the pros when he's got TJ Watt chasing him down. It's just not going to happen. And he's very, very reckless with the football. He will push that football downfield, and he gets away with it so much because, again, he's got elite receivers. And the teams that he's gone up against, he hasn't beaten a single ranked team this season. Like, the talent differential is crazy. It's crazy, the talent differential that he has with his team. Let's see here. Yeah, poor awareness of when and how to be aggressive. Certainly, when I say how, I mean if you're going to be aggressive and push the football down the field, make sure you're not throwing it into double coverage. Make sure that if you're throwing it on the boundary, throw it on the outside along the sidelines where only a receiver can get it. That type of stuff I saw multiple times. He messed up quite frequently. Inconsistency when it comes to his footwork is another thing that I noticed. A lot of times he's throwing off his back heel when he does not need to. He's got a clean pocket. Get to your base and get the football off. It's just really, really annoying stuff. And for me, this is the biggest thing of his all. He doesn't do the little things. There were two things in particular that I saw multiple times on his film. One thing one time, I'll actually say that, but this other thing I saw multiple times on his film, he does not sell handoffs. He refuses to. He refuses to sell handoffs. He could always fake like he tucked it and ran. He could fake like he's rolling out for play action. None of that. None of that. It's always stand up, hand off the ball, and just stand still. And that's annoying as hell. All right, because you want to try to play for your guys. You want to try to help your guys. How many times have we seen at the pro level, even with quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, right, who not a superstar per se, solid NFL quarterback. With the Browns, we've seen it where there have been times where he's faked the play action so good that a linebacker has followed him thinking that he still has the football, and it opens up a lane in the running game. Happened less and less as time went on in Cleveland, but especially like when he first started doing really, really well with Kev, it was something that we saw quite frequently. That type of stuff annoys the hell out of me. And there was a play against Florida where there was it ended up getting called back. It wasn't a fumble, but there was a fumble on the field, and Florida picked it up and they started running it back, and Cam's just standing still. He's not doing anything. He's standing still, not even flinching. And some people might look at that and say, oh, he knew it wasn't a fumble, it wasn't a reception, whatever. I don't care. You should have that fight and have that heart to go out there and at least try to slow the returning team from getting a touchdown. I just think that this guy, and I know this is going to sound crazy coming from somebody who's overweight, this guy's lazy. This guy's lazy, okay? A lot of times it comes off as coolness or calmness, but there's so many little details of the game where it shows. He's just lazy. He's got the God-given talent that you always could ever ask for. And maybe I'm completely wrong about this guy. Maybe he is so much better than what I'm seeing on the film. But, like, Derek, I can't help but look at this guy and think this is just a guy that just doesn't care enough about the details, doesn't care enough about being the best, because he has that talent. And I don't think he cares, Derek. I think when it comes to those details, I just don't see it. And I see at the next level, I could see him being a guy that his teammates turn on and when things are bad, because he is somebody that I don't think cares enough about the details. And that's the biggest thing, my biggest gripe with him when it comes to him as a prospect and him for the Browns. Let me see here. What else did I have here? Has all the physical tools you'd like, but literally nothing else is what I said. Ooh, that's a little harsh.
Wow.
No attention to detail, not quick
Tell
with
us.
processing, inconsistent with footwork, and relies on being on a team with simply more talent than anyone they face. He will get exposed in the college football playoffs if the Hurricanes make it there. Let's see. Oh, here we go. For pro comps, I got a few here.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
So I got a more mobile Jameis Winston. I've got Anthony Richardson. And this one will kill you. Another Johnny Manziel. I've got right here, if we're comparing Anthony Schwartz to Anthony Richardson, then Cam Ward would be Mecole Hardman. That's what I've got. So.
You've been waiting to get that one out.
I have been waiting. Just genuinely, there's the little things to the game, right? We talk about this all the time. In particular, like false start penalties, all the minor stuff in games that eventually turn into an avalanche and kill you. At the NFL level, those small things, the teams that do those the best are the best teams in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs, they are undefeated, and there have been many times this year where they should have been defeated. But they do the little things well. This is a guy that doesn't do that. So I will rest my case there, Derek. I think I already know where you're going with this, but tell me your thoughts on Cam.
Oh, here. Man. Before we do, I don't know if I've been saying the QBR rankings of all these guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to quickly throw in Jalen Milroe is 5th in QBR. Curtis Ruark was 2, which is kind of surprising. Jaxson Dart was 4th. Quinn Ewers is 36th. And then that leads me to talking about Cam Ward. So what I will say is this just right off the bat. The reason why we are going to so blatantly disagree on extreme levels on this one is simply last year with why am I forgetting it? Caleb Williams. With Caleb Williams, we very much so disagreed on Caleb Williams for all the same reasons we're going to disagree on Cam Ward. So, I mean, at least we're consistent, Tristan. We're consistent on our views. I have Cam Ward number 1. And I want to clarify. I'll just go ahead and spoil it for you. My number 2 is Shedeur Sanders. And between these two, I think, in my opinion, as far as NFL prospects, they are the 2 best in the draft. Where it comes, as far as the rankings, and each team is going to have drastically different rankings, is prospect versus readiness, right? And for me, I have Cam Ward number 1 overall. Did I already say that?
Yeah,
I already said it. Okay. So let's just, before we get into it, details. Cam Ward is 6'2", 223 pounds. He is going to be 23 to start the next season, which I've seen people online say that he's going to be 25. I've heard people online say he's going to be 24. That is a lie from the devil himself. Cam Ward will be 23 years old. I want to get that straight. Because it drives me crazy when, especially with Browns fans, because we talk about the age guardrails. And it's like, okay, I understand that argument, but let's get the age straight, right? And that's not something that you said, but just for context for everybody, Cam Ward will be 23. All right? This is not Brandon Whedon. Let's get that straight. Okay.
Brandon Whedon.
Man, Whedon. The myth, the legend. So Cam Ward has bounced around college football. which is partially... I'll explain more later. I have, there's a lot in Cam Ward, but partially why I disagree on the caring aspect is because of where all he's been. So he started off at Incarnate Word, went to Washington State, and then you'll remember last year we talked about him declaring for the NFL draft after Washington State. We both agreed that's a horrible idea. Don't do it. Don't do it. You could be a top 5 pick. He goes to Miami, and here we are. Cam Ward this season, 3,494 yards, 66.8 completion percentage, 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 89.6 QBR, number 1 in college football. Take the debate out of it, take everything out of it that you want to, just strictly on what we talked about with Nussmeier. This is why you come back. This is why you find a program that fits you, you come back, you keep building, because Cam Ward would have been a 3rd, 4th round pick, probably at best last year, and now he legitimately could be the number 1 overall pick, depending on what team gets that pick. And yes, partially due to the quarterback position being as important as it is, but that's not his fault. That's not his fault. The point being is he has turned himself from a guy who went to Incarnate Word to a guy who ended up at Miami and is in the Heisman race and is in the race for a top pick in the draft. That is a hell of an accomplishment to you, Cam Ward. Great job. As far as your career goes, that's a heck of a thing to do, to say the least. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty and the details as far as this whole thing goes. For strengths, I have he's good intermediate to underneath accuracy. Great arm strength, great velocity. I shouldn't say great arm strength. Good arm strength, great velocity. Cool, calm, and collected at all times. His eyes lead his feet. He makes tough throws look easy. Good ball placement, drives the ball downfield, can throw at different arm angles. That's what I have as far as the key points. Now, weaknesses, decision making, deep ball accuracy, drop backs, holds on to the ball too long. So with Cam Ward, I think, and this is why we're going to disagree, is because these types of players like Cam Ward are high ceiling, low floor. High ceiling, low floor. And it's the risk you take when you pick a player like that. Now, I'm just going to say this, and it's going to get taken out of context. It's going to get taken wrong. And people are going to try to say I'm saying this guy is this guy. I'm not. But it is just a fact of the matter. The best quarterback in the NFL right now was very, very, very raw coming out of college. Patrick Mahomes. He had traits. He had ability. But he was also holding on to the ball. He was making dumb decisions. He was trying to force things. Like, all of these guys are not ready to come out, right? They're not picture perfect, ready to come out. With Cam Ward, what I love the most about him, he's got a great frame to play quarterback, right? He's not the tallest quarterback in the world. He's not the fastest, whatever. But at 6'2", 223, his frame is great for the position. Excuse me. Cam Ward is a guy who's going to survive hits. He's been hit many times, especially at Miami. He's been hit. His offensive line, and it's a tough debate because we talked about it with Deshaun Watson. How much of it is you holding onto the ball versus the offensive line actually being bad? My opinion is that the Miami offensive line is not great. I don't know how good they are, but they're not like a top tier level, whereas more so you can look at like LSU. They got a right tackle. They got Will Campbell. They got a good offensive line. As far as his receiving weapons, Restrepo is great. Everybody else, I am not willing to throw into that category. I will say they are good, but I will not say they are great. There was one throw in particular with the loss against Georgia Tech. And Cam Ward made one of the best throws I've ever seen in college football. Just a typical drop back throw. He's dropping back, right? He's got pressure. He's staying within the pocket, shifting. And again, these are things you're not going to see on highlights because they weren't it didn't get completed. But this is the little stuff you got to pay attention to. He was shifting, right? Flips his hips, makes a throw with perfect accuracy, perfect velocity, with two defenders right here, right? Receivers like my microphone, two defenders coming in. He threads the needle, hits the guy in the hands, only spot he could throw that ball, and the guy drops it. The guy drops it. Now, as a football fan, regardless of your opinion of Cam Ward, that's like a come on, man. That dude just made a play, and you dropped the ball. Critical moment, too. I think that was third down. But point being, I don't view Cam Ward as the number one guy in the draft from his highlights. I don't care. Like him holding onto the ball forever and then just and making a play, I don't care. Like that's not the stuff I care about. And I actually went into evaluating Cam Ward with a very negative perspective because of that sort of stuff. What I wanted to see is in situations where he is getting the ball out quickly, where he's in kind of a read and react timing sort of situation, how is he going to handle it? And at Miami, they run an offense that is very similar to the Chiefs, very similar to the Cardinals as far as a college comparison. So, a lot of the holding on to the ball things. Tristan, this is a point that I made last year with Caleb Williams, and I'm not trying to use this as a excuse for him holding on to the ball. You are correct. 100% correct. He holds on to the ball way too long. And he's trying to be Superman way too much. 100%. However, a lot of the game plan for Miami is deep developing passing plays. For better, for worse, right? Those are what produces the highlight plays, but it's also what produces the terrible ones. And that for me is the biggest thing with Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward, and this is, in my opinion, where you're being too critical, Cam Ward will play a great game. Like, I'm talking flawless. He's accurate. He's quick. He's not holding on to the ball forever. He's doing everything right. And then he'll have the play where it's stupid. And then he'll have 2 to 3 plays a game where it's like, what are we doing? And it drives you crazy. It might drive you crazy. It drives me crazier. Like, I hate it. I hate it. Go ahead. You want to say something?
You know who that sounds like?
Who?
Sounds like Jameis Winston.
You know what? I can't disagree with you as far as those things go.
But
although
I respect your opinion. I respect your take. I hear you.
Although where I will disagree is I think Jameis isn't one bad moment. It's like 8. it's way more. Yeah. But, and I know I'm being very long-winded, and I'm sorry.
You're fine.
But Cam Ward, I absolutely adore his throwing motion. And sort of, I know his mechanics are sloppy, and I know there are things to fix. But his throwing motion and how he attacks as a quarterback, I love. It is chef's kiss to me. If you watch how he throws, like I said, his feet leads his eyes, right? So as a quarterback, it's get set, step with your feet, lead, and fall through. Cam has similar to almost like it's not the best explanation, but he plays quarterback almost like a baseball player, which I love those guys because the ability to make tough throws off platform just through arm torque, arm movement, those sorts of things, for me, I love those guys. I absolutely love those guys. And that's what he does at a high level. He makes the high velocity, just rip it throws at a high level. And a lot of times for me, when I watched his film, I found a lot of his deep ball inaccuracy is at fault of his mechanics. And, you know, what I think helps him also hurts him in how he plays the game. And I'll be honest, I have not done the best job explaining this in my head. I had everything laid out better. I'm kind of all over the place. But as far as him as a whole, let's just wrap this up in a bow real fast. Cam Ward is not somebody you want starting on day one. And my biggest fear is that he will be. That's my biggest fear. Cam Ward is somebody who needs to go in a system with sort of established structure, which why I have him at 1 for us, even with us, is because I think the structure of which we run our offense, if we do it the way we are supposed to, the way it should be, through the run game, play action, a lot of motion, a lot of movement, I think Cam Ward would fit tremendously, strictly because of his ability to see it, rip it. Now, he also brings the extending and the playmaking and those sorts of things. Yes, 100%. That's not why I love him. I love him because of the arm strength. I love him because of the intangibles. And Tristan, the most important thing, and honestly, between Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, the reason why I have Cam Ward number 1, Cam Ward can walk into the city of Cleveland, walk into a locker room that just dealt with Deshaun Watson, walk into a dumpster fire, and not care whatsoever. Cam Ward doesn't know what adversity is. I mean, when you watch him play on the field, tough moments, whatever, he is beyond cool, calm, and collected. And if the Browns were to draft him, if we were talking about Cam Ward as the next guy, I couldn't care less about the adversity side of things. He can handle it. He can absolutely handle it, which I think is a huge positive. He certainly has negatives. He certainly does. I don't think it is as drastic as maybe you point out. And partially the reason why I say that is I watch a lot of his games. Like at work, a lot of times Miami is on before Ohio State or, you know, whatever we have going on. And I actually get to see him play as a snap per snap basis. And I think he is a victim of he has the highlight great plays and he also has the highlight terrible plays. And both are what gets seen the most. What you don't see is the in-between. And I do think he's getting unfairly treated in some ways, and I do think he's getting overly treated high in some ways. So, yeah, there's a lot. There is absolutely a lot.
Yeah, Cam Ward for me is absolutely the most polarizing guy in this class. And it was the same thing with Caleb Williams in last class because you see what those guys are physically capable of. For me, what I always fall back on when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks, especially as of late, what I've fallen back on, what are your instincts? When you've got pressure, when it's a tough situation, what do you instinctually do? And for me, when I'm looking at Cam Ward, there's just a lot of things that for me, I can't get down with. I can't get down with it. He does play hero ball, and I hate that. The king of fourth quarter comebacks is Tom Brady, and he would never hold on to the ball forever looking for one killer final blow. He would always find that dump off that got him like 8 yards out of bounds, right? He always came up and just took what was there. He didn't force plays, right? And I just see that way too much from Cam. He's forcing plays. But again, listen, he is the most, as far as raw talent goes, he's either the most or the second most raw prospect in this draft. It's
I
one
think
of those
he's
two.
He's
You
two
think he's
behind
two?
Milroe. Yeah.
Yeah, understandable. I don't know, man. I've got some guys who I really like in terms of raw prospect, raw ability. But still, regardless, incredible skill set. I look at a lot of the stuff that he does and I say, wow, that's great. You're not getting away with that at the pro level. That's just, it's not going to happen. There's a lot of fixing with him. And I agree with you, Derek. If he's going to work, he's got to sit. And that was exactly what I said with Caleb Williams. He's been starting. He's had great moments.
Yeah.
It's been, and to his credit, it's not been a great situation in Chicago with coaching, and that really does matter. But yeah, Cam Ward's got to go to the right fit, got to go to the right place. That's the most important thing with him. If he doesn't, then I don't think he works. I don't think he works in the NFL.
God help him if he ends up in Vegas.
Oh my goodness.
I don't think he will. I don't.
If he goes to the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah. No.
I mean, you said it. He's the. It's either here or it's here. There's no in between. The last thing I will throw in real fast, and in my rambling, I forgot to mention it. What you just said, are the checkdowns. If he goes to a place with a coach who can drill it into his head, Cam, take what they give you. Take what they give you. Take what they give you. If he can get that drilled into his head, and I'm not saying Mario Cristobal is a great coach, or I'm not even saying he sucks, but as far as quarterback readiness at the NFL level, I don't think he's the best. If Cam Ward, and as much as I can't stand Ryan Day, and this might be bias, you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I am. If Cam Ward's in Columbus right now, he's the number one overall pick. Because a lot of my reasoning for saying that is a lot of what Ryan Day teaches his quarterbacks is the checkdowns. Watch every single one of his quarterbacks. It's a lot of checkdown. It's a lot of taking what they give you, making it simple. If Cam Ward can get that down, he certainly can be really special. He certainly can be. It's just going to be a matter of where he goes, where it lines up, and how they handle it.
Yeah.
And that's yeah. If Cam goes to Carolina, boy, I know he's special. I know that
he's not that special.
Yeah, but I mean it's the same thing. Like, okay, if Caleb Williams goes to Carolina, is it any better?
Yeah, no. I mean,
right?
Williams
Like,
in Chicago, you're seeing it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the final thing I'll say. I know I've said a lot.
No,
I'm
you're
so
fine.
sorry.
Man. You're fine.
Cam has everything tools wise that he needs to be great, to be a really great quarterback. But it is the bad habits. It is the bad, the bad habits that he's got to get out of. And he's got to have a coach that really drills into him. He cannot have a coach who's just going to be like, oh, you're our number one pick. You're going to be great. No, he needs to be coached. He needs to be coached, which I cannot wait to see what he is at the next level. Because I'll be honest with you, when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks, Cam might be the guy that I really figure out if I'm terrible at evaluating quarterbacks or if I'm good at it. Because what I see him as in the right spot, I think he's really good. If he goes to the wrong one, oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. No. It's one of those, again, similar to Caleb Williams last year. It's just going to have to be an agree to disagree type thing with the both of us. But with that being said, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, beautiful thing about it is we're going to see it. Like, we are going to see in the playoffs and those sort of things. And a big thing is Miami's defense. Their defense sucks.
They do.
So if their defense can hold up enough to keep them in the playoffs, and we see him go up against better defenses, then we're going to really be like, okay.
The big litmus test for me for this guy and his draft stock, ACC championship game. That's where it starts for me, right? How is he going to look against most likely Clemson at this point? How is he going to look in that game? Because that's going to be the ultimate test for him. It's going to be the best team he's played all year without a shadow of a doubt.
Shout out Cade Klubnik today.
Cade Klubnik, yeah, he looked great.
He took, what was it, like a 35-yard run to the house to shut out the game.
Crazy play. Yeah. But with that being said, Derek, let's move on to the next guy. I gave.
Whoa.
Sorry. Oops. I gave my number 4, which was Cam Ward. I believe we already revealed your number 3.
Yeah, my number 3 was Quinn.
Now, do you want to give your number 2, or do you want me to give my number 3?
So wait a minute. I've said my 1, my 3, my 4, my 5. What haven't you done yet?
I haven't done 2 and 3.
Okay. Start with 3, I guess, and then.
All right.
Because I got a feeling 3 is my 2. Am I correct?
I think you're correct. My number 3 quarterback is Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders, for me, in terms of who he is as a prospect, I find him really, really intriguing. I think that with him, let me just kind of go through some of the strengths and weaknesses that I have listed for him, because between him and my number 2, the most film I have watched, because I wanted, if I was going to come out and I was going to make this claim, I wanted to make sure that I got it right. So let me start with the strengths here, because there's quite a bit here with Shedeur. The first things first, mobility. He's a mobile quarterback, right? It's not just good enough. It's not just middle of the line. It's not quite as good as Jalen Milroe, but it's good mobility. He can make some special plays downfield, make those off-platform throws, throwing on the run. Those are all things that he can do and do with varying success. Pretty good, in my opinion. He's got some special arm talent. He can make multiple different throws, multiple different angles of his throws. Really, really special in that regard. Does a really, really good job of keeping his eyes downfield when dealing with pressure. He has some good footwork. He's a fairly accurate thrower for the most part, outside of some minor inconsistencies, but most college quarterbacks have that. He's got a good pocket presence, not the greatest. Kind of has, and I'll get into this with the weaknesses as well. He has moments where, a bit kind of like Cam Ward with me, but not to the extremes that Cam Ward is. He's very, very good with RPOs in particular. That's where I think Colorado's had their biggest success, in my opinion, as far as their turnaround with their offensive line, because it's forced him to get the ball out quicker, and it's kind of made their O-line game kind of improve quite a bit. The implementation, at least more RPOs, I think that's really helped their team succeed. And the last thing is he's got good ball placement on throws downfield and on his first reads. Typically, his first read, he knows where that football needs to go, regardless, right? He's very, very, very good at that. Now, going into the weaknesses, similar but not as extreme as Cam Ward, he holds on to the ball too long. Especially, we were seeing this earlier in the year. He's been improving with it. Again, similar to that Colorado offense, they've been getting better with that stuff as the season has gone on. So it's something where, again, as the season goes on, maybe he can jump up my board. I absolutely can see that for him. Let's see here. He at times he can stare down his first read and doesn't really move off of it too well. There were a couple instances in particular in zone where some corners had gotten a good read on him because he was staring down his first read. It either led to incompletions or interceptions. Let's see here. And again, mostly at the beginning part of the season, so it's kind of phased itself out a little bit. Can force throws at times, in particular when he's down in football games or feels like he has to make a play. He has that I have to be Superman gene, and I hate that personally. It's a thing about quarterbacks I absolutely hate. Play within your offense. Just play, take what the defense gives you. That's something that I noticed quite a bit with him. Can struggle with placement of the ball when moving off of his first read and needing to get the ball off quickly. When he does move off of his first read, and this isn't every time, but a lot of times he sticks that first read very long. He moves off to his second read, and oftentimes because of the fact that he stays so long on his first read, his second read, the window is closing for when he can get that ball there. And so then it's like, oh crap, and he throws it quick, and it's not the best placement. That's where, again, and that for me is a fixable issue because of the fact that if you can just teach him to get through his first read quickly or get through his reads quickly, that's something that I've seen enough to believe that he can fix that at the next level. And he certainly has the talent. That's the other thing. Let's see. He can struggle getting the ball out on time, especially when we're looking at comeback routes, corner routes. Those in particular, I noticed that he tends to be late on them quite frequently. He's a guy that a lot of times you'll see he won't throw it until it's open. He won't throw guys open. And that for me is the biggest reason why he was number 3 instead of number 2. Because at the NFL level, more so than anywhere, you have to be able to be on time and throw guys open. And for me, I just haven't seen that enough from him. And that's my biggest concern at the next level. Is he capable of being able to look off a safety, know where the ball's supposed to be before the play is open? Those are my biggest concerns with him and his effectiveness in the passing game moving forward. It kind of ties into rarely throwing a guy open. Can struggle when he doesn't have a clean pocket, especially earlier in the year. But again, Colorado's offensive line, in particular with earlier in the year, was terrible. So I don't want to give him too much grief for that. But it is something that I did notice quite a bit. Even if he did have 4 seconds to get the ball off, there would be times where it just wasn't great handling the pressure. But again, I think that's even potentially a bit nitpicky with that, and I'd be open to hearing that. Yes, so another thing, and I mentioned this with Cam Ward, steps back from the pocket instead of stepping up in the pocket. For me, that is one of the number one things with quarterbacks that I look for, because it tells me that you trust your offensive line, which, hey, listen, he has very good reason not to. But for when we're talking about offensive tackles in particular, it makes their lives a hell of a lot easier. Guys that step up into the pocket, up into the protection, that bubble, and I just think that when it comes to the best quarterbacks in the league, they step up and then go out. For him, too often it was jumping back, trying to run out. And it just, there were times where if he would have just stepped up in the pocket, stepped towards the pressure, and then moved away from it, he could have bought some time to make a fantastic play that he's capable of making. But again, I could understand if some people look at that and say it's nitpicky. For me, I just noticed it quite a bit, and it's a trait that for quarterbacks, in my opinion, in particular with this Cleveland Browns football team, you got to be able to step up in the pocket, because that's something that Kevin Stefanski absolutely relies on his quarterbacks to do. Step up in the pocket, make a play, whether that's stepping up and then escaping or stepping up and making a throw. That's the biggest thing when it comes to this offense. But in general, Shedeur, he's a very, very intriguing prospect. He's somebody that I could easily see being the number one prospect in this year's draft, without a shadow of a doubt. Ooh. He's got that potential. I really like him.
Number one quarterback or number one prospect?
Quarterback. I should rephrase.
Sorry. I was like,
quarterback. Although, I mean, you can make the argument it's technically the same, but because I mean, nobody talks about, Myles Garrett in the same light as Patrick Mahomes. You know what I'm saying? Like, different situation, but you get what I mean. Mm-hmm. But moving forward, he needs to do a better job of, again, stepping up in the pocket, progressing through his reads quicker, getting the ball out quickly. From the film I've watched so far, it seems like he is getting better in those areas week after week. If he fine-tunes those things, he will be a great quarterback at the next level. With the Browns, it scares me thinking about how Shedeur plays. He has a very similar style to Deshaun Watson. So that scares the living hell out of me. He holds the ball too long, gets out of the pocket too quick at times, struggles moving off his first read effectively. For the way Kevin Stefanski offense currently works, there would need to be an offensive personnel overhaul on the O-line to run a similar offense to Colorado. It also does not favor what Kevin Stefanski has done so well with the run game in years past. Play action-wise, in particular, running the ball under center, it concerns me. Projected him early first round, and then pro comp Deshaun Watson. I didn't say a projection for Cam Ward. I know he's likely going to go early first round. For me, I wouldn't take him till the third. That's how I feel about Cam Ward. I understand. I hear you. I forgot to mention that, but I'll put that in there. Jalen Milroe I had as an early first round comp as well, or projection. But that's what I have on Shedeur Sanders. Derek. I know I just gave you a final blow with Cam Ward, but tell me about Shedeur Sanders, who I'm assuming is your number 2 quarterback.
Yeah, I have Shedeur number 2. Just kind of details first before I get into the whys. Shedeur is 6'2", 215 pounds. He will also be 23 to start the season at the NFL level. Went to Jackson State, went to Colorado, where he obviously is now. 2,882 yards, 69.6 completion percentage, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 74.9 QBR. I just go over my strength and weaknesses first because I have a lot of thoughts on him. But great pocket movement, good velocity as far as the intermediate underneath stuff. Great ball placement, scrambles to pass. He doesn't scramble to run, which I like a lot.
That is true.
He plays the position like a point guard. Great awareness, solid mobility, this word's gonna kick my ass. Great we're gonna skip that. Anticipation. That's what I was trying to say. Got it. Sees the field well. He's got experience behind terrible offensive lines. Knows what he's doing. He knows where he's going with the ball, like you said. Can throw at different arm angles. Weaknesses. Solid arm strength. Tends to hold the ball too long. Deep ball. Arm strength is a question. In all caps, I have. Probably hates Cleveland. Which is certainly a big factor in this, which obviously we're talking about him as a prospect, but let's be real. Shedeur Sanders ain't coming to Cleveland. Like, Dion came out and said that he will be a part of dictating where him and Travis Hunter go. Yeah. When Deion Sanders tweeted about the Deshaun injury, yeah, that, at least in my opinion, that died that day. Just me, just my opinion. But I have a lot of thoughts with Shedeur. What separates these two, because for me, it's clear 1, 2, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, in whichever order. As far as prospects, for me, it's those two guys. The reason why I have Cam Ward number 1, because again, it's more of a raw talent versus what you have, right? I think Shedeur Sanders is what he is. Not saying he can't get better, not saying he can't get worse, but I think Shedeur Sanders' ceiling is way less than Cam Ward's ceiling. I think Cam Ward's floor is way more than Shedeur Sanders' floor. So for me, with Shedeur, I think I love a lot of his game. I really do. I love a lot of his game. The willingness to, like I said, plays like a point guard. And there is one comparison that I know everybody's going to hate. Everybody's going to hate this comparison because this guy is sucking at an all-time level right now. Reminds me a lot of Bryce Young in college. Bryce Young's bread and butter was not making the crazy throws. It wasn't making the electrifying playmaking throws. It was spreading the ball out, right? It was finding open guys and getting them the football. That's what Bryce Young did. Now, obviously, there's a big difference here. Bryce Young is 5 foot tall and Shedeur's 6'2". So that plays a factor. But Shedeur has a lot of what Bryce did, a lot of those sorts of things. And I like the fact that Shedeur has the arm angle, what's the word? Versatility, right? He's not limited to just being a one type of passer. Like he can, there was one play in particular where he was like rolling left and he came out here like real, and hit beautiful, right on the money.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that I love. That's what I loved about Caleb. That's what I love about Shedeur. That's what I love even with Cam Ward at times. That's what I love about some of these other guys, right? When you have the ability to make throws off platform and at different angles, that's what sets you apart, right? That's what sets you apart. The days of Peyton Manning, I love him to death, but the days of Peyton Manning dropping back and just like those days are over, right? Offenses don't run that way. Now I will say the man keeping that alive is CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud plays more traditional quarterback than a lot of guys.
Yeah.
But not everybody's a CJ Stroud. I just hate to say. But Shedeur, I like a lot. I like his pocket movement, right? Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, you mentioned it, the holding onto the ball sorts of things. And they do have similarities as far as the Superman aspect. Difference being Shedeur's line sucks. Shedeur's offensive line is terrible.
It's got, in fairness, it's gotten better as the season has gone on, for sure. Mm-hmm. But in particular, early in the season, oof.
Yeah.
Oof, man. That was brutal.
Yeah. Which I like. I like the fact that he's used to terrible offensive lines because when it happens in the NFL, it ain't going to surprise him all that much.
Yeah.
Which is why when he ends up in Las Vegas, it should not be a shocker to him when his line sucks. But I like a lot of Shedeur. I really do. And I like the intermediate to middle of the field type throws. Great. Ball placement, great. Accuracy, great. My number one criticism and complaint is with Shedeur is something that I have tried my absolute best to talk myself out of this being a problem, and it is what I have found to be the number one problem with quarterbacks at the NFL level who fail, right? Arm strength. Arm strength is the one thing that when you go throughout history, right? Lamar Jackson, he can't hit the broadside of a barn, but he's got a strong arm. Look at him now. Josh Allen, he's got all the arm strength in the world, but what's his accuracy at? Look at him now. there are plenty of quarterbacks that come out and they're accurate. They got the touch, whatever, but they don't necessarily have the strongest arm in the world. And I don't want to make this something that it's not, because Shedeur does not have a weak arm. His arm is not weak. It's just not that strong. And I have legitimate, real concerns at an NFL level of his arm. And partially to the reason why, and actually your comparison plays perfectly into what I'm about to say. When you watch Shedeur Sanders throw a deep ball, it's not a lot of just, right? It's he puts a lot into it. Yeah. Guess who that was this past year? Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, we saw his mechanics change from having the ability to just have a lot of arm strength to he had to put his full body and torque into it. I see a lot of that with Shedeur, and I don't want to be unfair to him. I don't. But if we're talking strictly just arm strength, right? Ranking the quarterbacks on arm strength, your guy who you're about to say next, if he goes to the draft, is by far number one. By far number one. Yeah. And then you're looking at, I think Jalen Milroe's up there. Cam Ward is up there as far as arm strength. Ewers, right? There's guys who have strong arms. They just have other questions. Shedeur is the one guy where that, for me, is the number one. And I'm talking more so deep balls. I think he has the accuracy and the arm strength to make the the middle throws. And that's why I do think him as a Cleveland Brown, if that were to happen, would be fine. Because that's a lot of where we attack the field. But I have concerns. And as far as him holding on to the ball, I don't think him holding on to the ball is as big of an issue as Cam Ward, because what your criticism was with Cam was the checkdowns. Shedeur will take the checkdowns. Yeah. Shedeur will take the checkdowns, and that is one level he is above Cam at.
Yeah.
I will say, and this is maybe unfair. Restrepo is a hell of a receiver. He's not Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is the best prospect player in this draft. He's the best player in college football. And anybody who wants to argue that with me, you can talk to a wall. Because Travis has been doing unbelievable things forever. At corner, at receiver. He is an alien. He's an alien. And I'm not saying that's a negative to Shedeur, but a lot of the touchdown throws, Travis is adjusting to that ball, and Travis is making a play on that ball. And I do have concerns if he doesn't have a guy. Not saying Travis Hunter level, but if he doesn't have a guy who can really adjust to the ball at a high level, I do have some questions. I do. So,
yeah.
Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, I share a lot of your concerns. Absolutely. I do think when it comes to Shedeur, the arm strength doesn't worry me too much, to be honest with you. That's not, I view it as similar to a Quinn Ewers, maybe a little bit less, but in particular, what you get from Shedeur with buying time, I feel like it makes up for it. But again, it is similar to that Deshaun Watson style where, the mobility itself, it's not the level of Lamar Jackson. The arm strength itself, it's not the level of a Josh Allen. They're both kind of just like above average, per se. I say his arm strength is closer to average. But yeah, like that's where it's like, for me, a lot of it comes down to is instinctual stuff. And there's some stuff that I like that he does, and there's some stuff that I don't like. And that's where I personally just couldn't justify having him higher than 3, which is crazy to say. I understand that. But I did a lot of research into Shedeur. I wanted to make sure I got this guy right, and I will continue to do more research. And he is a guy that absolutely, I'll reserve this right for Cam Ward even. If towards the end of the year I see stuff that I wasn't seeing before, they absolutely can move up my draft board. And the guys that are at the top of my draft board, they absolutely can slide down. And I'm totally okay with saying that right now, because there's still a lot of football left to be played, a lot of important football left to be played as well. Mm-hmm. With that being said, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, last thing I want to throw in there, as far as what you just said, with the rest of this season, what I want to see out of all these guys is the level of competition. That's what I was trying to say. Colorado right now, I don't know what happened today. I think they won. I'm pretty sure they won.
They beat Utah, what was it, like 49-28, something like that?
Yeah,
they
okay.
Blew the barn doors off of them, I think.
Okay. But here's the reality. College Football Committee wants as much eyes on the product as they can, right? Cam Ward will... Go ahead.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just going to say Colorado beat Utah 49-24.
49-24, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to want Coach Prime in the playoffs. They're going to want Shedeur and Shiloh and Travis Hunter in the playoffs. They're going to want Cam Ward, Restrepo in the playoffs. They're going to want... Hear me when I say Alabama will make the playoffs. They will find a way to put them in. They will find a way to put them in.
I've been... Tony Battaglio, friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
But he is hellbent that Alabama's not going to get in the playoff, and I'm trying to tell him at every turn they're going to find a way to sneak him in. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, hey, congratulations for being the best non-conference winner. Your opponent is Alabama, and it's going to suck. But TV ratings are going to be great. So, But
but the point in all that is, the beautiful part of that, for the detriment of other college football teams, for the NFL prospect side of things, we're going to see better matchups.
Yeah, and it's going to give us a really, more so than ever in college football, we're going to get a great idea of what these prospects look like at the next level, because they're going to be going up against the best of the best week after week.
Yeah.
And that's exciting as hell.
Which, by the way, just to throw this in real fast, completely different position. Cannot wait to see what Ashton Genty does. I cannot wait to see. Because he's going to... there are people who are like, oh, he's doing this against lesser talent. Boy, I cannot wait to see. And there's a chance that he rolls in down the street in Columbus, Ohio, and kicks our ass. There's a real possibility.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be excited to see him shut the mouths of a lot of people. I cannot wait.
Even if Boise State doesn't even have to win their first playoff matchup, if he just looks good, Jerry Jones is going to pick him with this first pick.
Oh, yeah.
Written in the stars, guaranteed. It's happening, because he's the only person dumb enough to do that. No offense, because Ashton Genty is a generational running back talent, in my opinion, at least what he's shown so far. But selecting a running back that high is crazy. So, but regardless.
All right, let's get to your number 2.
Let's move on to my number 2.
Speaking of 2, we are 2 hours into this, baby.
Yes. And I am ready to defend this with my life, because I know he's one of your honorable mentions. My number 2 is Mr. Drew Allar, quarterback out of Penn State.
Shout out to you for saying his name correct, by the way. My biggest pet peeve with Drew Allar is people who are like, I don't know about Drew Allar. It's not Allar. It's Drew Allar. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's fine. Gus Johnson has just ingrained that last name in my brain. So I have to absolutely remember it. But yeah, let's talk about Drew Allar. So in terms of statistic wise, he's not really going to blow you away. in terms of, passing yards, passing touchdowns. It's all like, just kind of like average to above average. But at the same time, for me, what excites me the most when I watch him is when I watch him. Like it sounds crazy to say, but let me like kind of phrase it. He has, without a shadow of a doubt, the most potential in this draft class in terms of quarterbacking at the NFL level. You mentioned his arm strength earlier. You didn't say his name, but of this draft class, if he decides to come out, he will have the strongest arm in this draft, and it's not really even close. He's got a cannon, a howitzer, right? This guy, Derek, I sent you a couple of clips that I when I was first doing my research into Drew Allar, I watched how he did against Ohio State last year. Statistically, not a great game. But when I turned on the film, there were things that I saw that blew me away. There was one play in particular. It was getting closer towards the end of the game. He stepped up in the pocket, avoided pressure, planted his feet, did cross-body throw to the sideline, hits his guy perfectly in the hands, and he drops it. Like it was so symbolic of Drew Allar at Penn State. Like this guy could not sell his soul for a good wide receiver. His best receiving threat is his tight end, and outside of that, maybe his running back. His receivers are terrible. And I promise if he had like just even like middle of the pack in terms of the top teams in college football, just like a middle of the pack group, he would be, without a shadow of a doubt, the number one quarterback coming into this draft. Because what I see on a down-to-down play basis is a guy who has a crazy arm in terms of strength, can make those off-platform throws, moves through his progressions insanely fast. He's a guy who processes at a very, very high level. He sees a guy, if it's not there and he doesn't see it getting there, he immediately goes on to his next read. In particular, you see this with his film from last year, where his first read wasn't there, moved to his second read, wasn't there, third read. Maybe it was there, maybe it wasn't, whatever. He, on a regular basis, would make multiple reads in just a couple of seconds. And I think that when it comes into translating to the NFL, that means the world. The world. It's why I love Drake May so much, because even though he didn't have the most talent around him, it was the instinctual stuff, moving through his reads really, really quickly. I loved that because it's a great habit and it's something that translates into NFL success. The best quarterbacks in the league are ones that have the ability to make their reads quickly. They hit the downfield areas, but they throw the ball quickly. That's what I love the most when it comes to things that translate to the next level. So, another thing that he does, and it's something that I pointed out with Shedeur, it's probably the main reason why Drew went above Shedeur, throwing with anticipation. Like I said, this guy's receivers suck, right? They're terrible. He has to throw his guys open, and he oftentimes hits crazy windows. In particular, actually, if we look at the Ohio State game from this season, he had a touchdown throw to his receiver, I can't remember his name, that was stolen by Denzel Burke because his receiver sucks. You know what I'm talking about too. It was a beautiful throw, placed perfect, hits his guy in the hands, and Denzel Burke ends up with the ball. By the way, great play by Denzel Burke. Fantastic play. But
his only good one of the year, by the way.
Oh boy. Let's not talk about Denzel Burke anymore. But regardless, like those are kind of some of the examples of like this guy doesn't get help, but he makes plays. I really, really like him as a prospect. The other thing is He steps up in the pocket to avoid pressure. I love that. He stays in the pocket as long as he can. But when he does have to escape the pocket, he keeps his eyes downfield. He does a really, really good job of that. Oftentimes it doesn't matter because his receivers suck and they can't get open, but he does it. In terms of weaknesses, the biggest number one issue with Drew Allar, inconsistency, footwork in particular. You'll see a lot of times where when he's taking his drop, like when he's doing his drop, his back leg, he might step too far back, right? And he gets off balance, and now he's got to rush everything. It's not clean, right? It's not perfect. And it does lead to some inconsistent accuracy, but he still does know, and he has a really good understanding of ball placement, so he gets away with it. What I mean by that is if you've got a bunch of guys in the middle, you've got a small kind of pocket for your receiver, instead of leading your guy into the group of linebackers, whoever that are waiting to kill him, again, similar, like I said, to Jalen Milroe that I saw quite frequently, he'll throw it behind his guy on purpose to make sure that he's protecting his receiver. He can fall with the ball. That understanding of placement is very important. And now the reason why his interception numbers aren't so crazy high, even though he has inconsistent accuracy, is because he has a really good understanding of the placement. So if he misses his guy on that type of throw, he's missing it too far behind him, right? And nobody's there anyway. So he gets away with it. In particular, along the sidelines, just throws it a little bit too far out of bounds, right? He does a good job of protecting the football in that way. But if he can figure out his footwork, make it a little bit more consistent, I really, really, really like the prospect he can become. There are times, in particular, you saw this against the teams that just were more talented than Penn State, in particular Ohio State. He can be thrown off his rhythm by pressure, just because, again, he is that type of quarterback that likes to stand in the pocket, likes to step up in the pocket, likes to find his guy. And when teams are able to completely annihilate that pocket and it's not formed, that's where you can kind of see him struggle a bit. And when he throws interceptions, in particular, I saw this twice. I want to say, I can't remember who I saw it against, but one of the things that Drew Allar does really, really well, pre-snap reads. It's part of the reason why he's able to get the ball out as quick as he can a lot of the time. However, there are a lot of instances where he over relies on his pre-snap reads. So, for example, he'll see, like it might look like cover 2 man, right? And then all of a sudden kind of shifts into more of like a cover 3 zone. And if in his pre-snap read, he had a receiver on the boundary that he knew was going to be going in on a post, sometimes if he's making a quick decision, a linebacker might drop back when he's not expecting him to, and that might result in a pick. That's kind of like a very vague scenario. There's one clip in particular that I'm thinking about. It happened with the receiver on the boundary. I can't remember exactly what coverage it was, but Drew saw it as man, thought that his guy who was coming back, I think it was on like a corner, sorry, not a corner, a comeback route, was going to be wide open, but the corner ended up playing zone and ended up reading it all the way, picked him off. There was specific stuff like that. So there are some instances where he does over rely on his pre-snap reads and doesn't adjust after the snap of the ball. But again, those are things very, very fixable at the next level. So when we talk about Drew Allar as a prospect, in terms of the physical attributes, he has everything you want, everything you could possibly ask for. And that's what gives him that edge, in my opinion. He's got the prototypical size. He's 6'5". He's got some pretty darn good mobility, and we actually saw that against Ohio State this year with even the bum knee. You actually saw that there were a lot of times where he had open running lanes and he was able to create with his feet. Lord knows he needed to, because his receivers were never getting separation. Let's see what else here. Yeah, cannon of an arm. His progression through reads and understanding of where to place the football are at a very high level. He does a great job of keeping the ball out of harm's way while also attacking downfield. However, Drew struggles with inconsistent footwork, particularly when facing pressure. He can be over-reliant on his arm to bail out his poor footwork, leading to inaccurate passes. Also can be over-reliant on his pre-snap reads when making quick decisions, rather than reading what the defense is doing post-snap. Overall, Drew is a very raw prospect who will need a year or so to sit behind a veteran and learn an offense while also perfecting his footwork. And then as far as the fit with the Browns, I think it's a perfect fit. Really, I truly think this is a perfect fit. And this is where I think a lot of people will kind of scoff. He's capable of being another Josh Allen. In particular, under Ken Dorsey and Kevin Stefanski, I think that offensive setup will promote that from him. He's capable of doing that. He's extremely, extremely, extremely raw, and I want to make sure I emphasize that. But with the proper guidance, he can be a top 5 quarterback in the league. Highest upside in this draft. I'm very confident in saying that. So my comp is Josh Allen, and my projection, I've got him as a mid-first rounder. Could be like a late first-round guy, but personally, I'd be okay if the Browns took him high. I really would. I think that this is the guy. I just couldn't justify putting him over Milroe. I think Milroe is still way, way, way better in terms of the player he currently is. And I think that Milroe, while his ceiling isn't as high, I like Jalen Milroe's ceiling quite a lot as well. So I just couldn't justify putting Drew above him. Now, something that I know we've had conversations about Drew Allar in the past, Derek, and the biggest thing with him was, should he go back to school? If he's not a solidified first rounder, probably he should, but only if he's going to transfer. It doesn't make sense for him to go back to Penn State because, quite frankly, James Franklin is not going to build him an offense that's going to be able to show how good he is. I think if he's going back to college, he's got to transfer to an Oregon, which I think would be a fantastic place for him, potentially in Alabama, if Jalen Milroe, which I believe he will, go to the draft. And then, maybe he thinks that he can go to USC, beat out Miller Moss, even though I think that's a bit too risky. But he would have to make a move if he's going back to college. He cannot stay at Penn State. It would kill his draft stock. It would. Yeah. So that's everything I have on Mr. Drew Allar. Derek, I really, really, really want to know what you think about him and why you felt like you couldn't include him in your top 5.
Well, for me, the one clear reason is if I was his cousin, brother, uncle, dad, I would literally sit him down and be like, hey, you are stupid if you go to the draft. I think you're stupid. Because the same reason, how you finish is how I'm going to start. Under no circumstances should he go back to Penn State. Penn State is his graveyard as far as the NFL draft goes. In this draft, by far strongest arm in the draft. You mentioned he's 6'5", 238 pounds. Medina, Ohio, born and raised.
He's born to be the Cleveland Browns quarterback.
I love a lot of Drew Allar. I certainly do have a lot of criticism, though. This season, he's got 2,006 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 5 picks, 81.5 QBR. That's 10. This game against a horrible Purdue team, I will say, but still, his stats, he was 17-19, 89.5 completion percentage, 247 yards, 3 touchdowns. Listen, I think Drew Allar is the most intriguing prospect outside of Jalen Milroe and Cam Ward. I think Milroe and Ward are the two where you look at and you're like, wow, like that could be special. That could be like great. Drew, I think, is right there, if not one, because of some of the things that you mentioned. His arm strength is unreal. And he's not just a strong arm. He's accurate, throws with anticipation. Jeez, that word is kicking my ass. Throws
with anticipation.
Yes. And overall, like he's a good quarterback. His footwork sucks at times. Like that is true. His footwork is terrible at times. But the fact of the matter is, like, he has nobody. He has nothing. Nobody. Nothing to work with. He's got no line. Okay. Cool. A good offensive line means nothing when you have nobody to throw to. And me leaving him off the list is not because of talent. It is strictly based on the fact that he should not be in this draft. And I don't think he will. At the end of the day, I think Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Allar will be in next year's draft, as they should be. But, as far as everything else, I mean, like I said, there are negatives. I think his mobility is more of a negative than I think maybe you do. I don't like him as far as mobility in the NFL. I think how do I put it? Some quarterbacks, right, when you get to the next level, they're quarterbacks. Some quarterbacks try to do everything, right? When you look at like a Jared Goff in Detroit, he's not running, but when he needs to, he can and get a few yards, right? For me, I think Drew Allar's comparison, the number one that jumps off the screen for me is prime Joe Flacco, which I know a lot of Browns fans are like, that name, there's a lot of opinions and feelings with that name. But they're very similar. Tall quarterbacks, good arms, accurate, whatever. I think Drew Allar is very similar. I don't think he's Josh Allen because Josh Allen coming out had accuracy concerns. I don't really see that a whole lot with Drew Allar. He certainly can get better. And I got to be honest with you, Tristan, this is going to be the dumbest thing that comes out of my mouth in these last 2 hours and 10 minutes. My biggest negative of Drew Allar, as stupid as it is his haircut. I absolutely cannot stand that man's haircut. He looks like an idiot. He needs to change it. He needs to change it. I cannot stand it. He's got the typical F-boy haircut that every middle school dude is walking around with. I beg you, Drew, get a better haircut. Like, it's so stupid. And I'm not saying that as if I got anything figured out great. But, I'm just saying. It's been an annoying thing of mine with him. But no, for real, he's a great, great prospect. But he could be a solidified top 5. Solidified top 5 next year.
Yeah.
If he goes to the right spot. And again, that's why I left him off of my list. I get it. I see it. He's great. He's great. But also, like you said, he is raw. I see him like a Flacco. I see him like a Stafford even in a lot of ways. Which, by the way, the Browns want to get a veteran quarterback in the offseason, I think it would be a good fit. But, just throwing that out there. I like him a lot. I really do. And all things aside, if he was for sure in this class, I would feel good about him, and I do feel good about him. I can't evaluate him at all at Penn State. I can't. They're terrible. James Franklin sucks. He has nobody to throw to. When you have a tight end who's great, Tyler Warren is great. he shouldn't be your number one. When he played Ohio State, hold on, let me see if I can find this.
Yeah, you told me some stats about that game because I watched it pretty closely. I didn't realize it was that bad. You probably have the statistics on you. It's incredible, the stats from that game that with receiving stats, because obviously it was Tyler Warren was the number one receiver, right? And then I want to say it was the running back,
Nick Singleton,
who was the next best receiver in that game. And then who was the third? Like the numbers were insanity. Yeah, you'll
we have to pull this up because
it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. It's why, Derek. Like, and then while you're doing that, let's pull up Oregon's wide receiver stats against Ohio State, right? Just to show some levels of difference here, because it's astonishing the difference in yardage. And while you're pulling that up, I'll pull that up.
I hate ESPN. I hate it. Oh shoot, Stipe's come on.
What? Oh, the game, yeah, or the fight, yeah. Which, by the way, come on, Stipe, pull through, my guy.
Bro, why is ESPN suck? Okay, hold on.
I just use Google, man. Google's good. All right, so I'm going player stats for Oregon. Okay, while you're pulling that up,
I have it.
Okay, you got it now. All right, then you go first, and then I'll go. All right.
You're leading. Okay, first of all, Drew Allar. Oh, before I say this, one complaint I do have about Drew Allar that I did not mention, mentally, and you kind of mentioned it, like he doesn't handle pressure well at times, and that does scare me a lot. And last year against Ohio State showed a lot. Like, he sucked.
And that's part of the reason why I want to bring up this receiver conversation, because I think a lot of it is he doesn't have anybody he can turn to.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't have anybody.
All right, ready. Number 1, Nick Singleton, 6 receptions, 54 yards. Running back. Number 2, Tyler Warren, 4 receptions, 47 yards. Tight end. Number 3, Harrison Wallace III, 2 receptions, 45 yards. Finally, a receiver on 2 receptions. And then, this has to be mentioned, 1 reception, 4 yards, Julian Fleming. He sucks.
Can you tell me what the rushing stats were that game? Do you have that up or no?
Damn it.
No, that's okay.
No,
right.
I got it. I got it.
Okay.
Number 1 rushing threat, tight end, Tyler Warren. 3 carries, 47 yards. Number 2, Drew Allar, 10 carries, 31 yards. 3, Katron Allen, 12 carries, 27 yards. And then number 4, Nicholas Singleton, 6 for 15.
That's his help. That's his help.
Dude.
Let me put this in perspective, okay? The Oregon game. All right. Let's start with receiving. The number 1 receiving threat. How many yards was it again? Or did you already
something?
Yeah, it was 40 something, right? All right. So, let's see. So, we got Mr. Evan Stewart, 7 receptions for 149 yards.
Future Cleveland Brown Evan Stewart.
Yes. Tez Johnson, 7 receptions, 75 yards.
Future Cleveland Brown Tez Johnson.
Terrence Ferguson, 4 receptions, 62 yards. Okay. And then the last one, not quite as much as the number 1 receiver for Penn State on the day, but Trayshawn Holden, 1 reception for 32 yards.
Oh, my gosh.
Rushing. Jordan James, 23 carries, 115 yards. And then Dylan Gabriel, 4 carries, 32 yards. And then the other 2 got a combined 4 carries, so I'm not going to combine them in. But that's the level of difference in help between Oregon and Penn State. it's astonishing to me how honestly, like Penn State wouldn't be nearly as good as this if it wasn't for Drew Allar. I think we can both agree on that. Because if they just had some average Joe as quarterback right now, they would not be a good football team. They would not. They don't have the level of talent that you need on offense, in particular in the receiving game. Rushing game, clearly, especially against Ohio State, was not good enough either. But they don't have the level of talent necessary. So yeah, if Drew Allar comes back to school, got to go in the transfer portal, got to go somewhere where he can show what he can do. That's the most important thing when it comes to Drew Allar. Here's what I will say, right? I would completely understand if Drew Allar went back into college and went to the transfer portal. At the same time, I feel like if he does that, for me, it feels almost like a slam dunk he would end up being the number one pick if he chose the right place to go in college, as far as transferring. Which at that point, I think that eliminates any chance that he becomes a Cleveland Brown. And for as high as I am on this guy, that does upset me, because I do think that this guy has that generational talent potential, more so than anybody else in this draft. And I think that this team with this coach is perfectly built for this guy. I would love it if the Browns end up getting like the 7th or 8th pick. I don't know if it would be considered collusion or not or whatever. Reach out to him and say, hey, if you come out, you're our pick. If you come out, you're our pick. I know it's risky as hell, and I know it might not be the right type of move, but at the same time, I think he's got that level of potential, and I think he'd be worth it. He's got to sit for a year, but let him sit behind a vet, somebody who's maybe like a Matt Stafford, right? Who's played a lot of football, wants to fight for one more big contract, right? Or something. I don't know. But regardless, put him behind somebody who knows what the hell they're doing for a year, and then let him go. Let him at it. I really feel like that would be the best course of action for the Browns.